So, the article that I have selected for us is right here. The title is Share My Check: Why Americans are Donating Their Coronavirus Relief Checks. Now, I'm guessing that you probably didn't expect that to be the title or the topic of the article. All of the things that we have discussed so far then have just been for background information. And now we're ready to consider this kind of different perspective, different way of looking at what has happened with these stimulus checks. The picture, of course, is of an actual stimulus check. You can see part of it here, and that's the back of it. These paper checks were sent to those Americans who did not want it directly deposited into their bank accounts. Mine was actually directly deposited. Dan's was not. He got a paper check. And you also see where the president's name is on the check. That was a bit of a controversial thing that happened. The checks were in production, and the president decided he wanted his name on them. So production had to temporarily stop so that they could make this correction and put his name on there. And of course, you can imagine that some people thought that was not such a good thing. Some people thought it was okay. Anyway, this article, though, talks about the way some people view the receiving of this money. That perhaps, while, most people can certainly use some extra money almost any time, some people feel like their obligation, their responsibility is to their fellow citizens and to helping others in need. And so we're going to look at how some Americans have decided to do that. Now, the government has and would have a very difficult time actually tracking, counting to see how many people use their money by giving it away. They would actually have to survey every American, right, to really determine that. And some people may be giving a portion, just a small portion. It is believed through the surveying that has been done, small group surveys, that kind of thing, that as many as maybe 3% of Americans are doing this, which would be over 9 million people may be giving their checks away. But that is only in sampling a few groups in the population to make this determination. So we may never really know. But I think you will find the article interesting. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. First, we'll do some vocabulary. I thought that it would be fun to play a game. I think games are fun. I can't play them with you right now because of our situation. But I thought, well, maybe I would try this method, which is sort of a game. The only problem is I can't hear you. So we'll make the best of it, okay? So I'm going to show you a vocabulary word and give you a choice of 2 possible definitions. And you choose the one that you think is what that word means, okay? That you think is what that word means. So this is going to be a little bit of a guessing thing, and you might know a word already. I think you may know the first one, I'm not sure. Nonjudgmental. Nonjudgmental is an adjective, okay? doesn't mean A, to not use mental ability, or B, to not judge something or someone. What do you think? I cannot hear you. All right. I bet you have got your phones and you're probably already looking it up. If you think that it is B, you are correct. All right? To be non-judgmental is to keep your thoughts to yourself. You may have an opinion or a feeling about something, and you may have a strong opinion or a strong feeling. But to be non-judgmental is to try to stay in the middle, okay? And to take a perspective on something that you think is fair or good for all. So I know that I personally try hard to be non-judgmental about situations, at least until I know all the facts. And then maybe I can make more of a personal judgment about them. But I think it's it's a wonderful trait to be non-judgmental about a lot of things, I think, in our society. All right, number 2. Upended. And you might hear this pronounced or spoken a little bit more quickly, as in upended, okay? Upended or upended, okay? It comes out almost sounding like A-P-P-E-N-D, okay, if someone's saying it more quickly. So, do you think it means A, to end something, or B, to turn over? This verb means to turn over, okay? As if to turn on the end, okay? Think of a box, and, that box has, maybe 2 ends to it, okay? The top end, the bottom end, then we have our sides, right? Okay. If something is upended, it is to turn it so that the end is on top, okay? The top end is on top, but you could also flip it the other way. It's kind of an odd word, so here's how it's used. It can be used to talk about a physical object that is turned upside down, okay? My child upended his bowl of cereal, dumped it out, okay? It flipped over. The birdhouse was upended by the squirrels who were playing on the birdhouse, okay? The squirrels turned it upside down. In a less tangible sense, upended can mean the same as kind of a crisis or a big mess that might be occurring in society, okay? It can also refer to a change of thought or a change of what would be considered a normal behavior. Ideas that are upended, okay? Ideas that change because people think that, want to think in a different way. So upended has a lot of different applications. You'll find it a good word, and it's used in our article. All right, number 3. It's a noun, and it's pronounced coalition. Ooh, I'm all crooked here. Oh, is that better? Coalition. Is a coalition a group of like-minded people who work together? Or is it the study of coal? Coal being the little chunks of black material that we mine from the earth to burn to heat fires, to heat up, then to use as energy. I'm sorry, I couldn't get the words out quite right. Okay, you do burn it. Okay, which one of these do you think is the correct definition for coalition? If you guessed, da da da, A, you're correct. Has nothing to do with coal. A coalition is a group of people who come together to kind of work something out. Oftentimes a coalition will be only temporary. They may stay together and work on something for weeks, maybe months, but not necessarily, they are not necessarily an organization or a group that continues on for a very, very long time, all right? They come together, they work through an issue, a problem, a situation, and make some decisions and go from there, all right? Our next one is Chronicle, and it is a noun. Have you ever heard this word? Do you think a chronicle is A, a record of events, or B, a kind of music? If you guessed, in this case, A, you are correct. And you may have guessed that because you may see this word sometimes on even a newspaper. I'll just make a guess here, the Detroit Chronicle, okay? Might be the name of a newspaper or a news magazine. A chronicle is researched and established information that is somewhat of a record of history. So, or events, okay, that someone has been very careful to make sure is written down and saved. Okay. And I should also say, if something is chronicled with a D, to make this a verb, it would be something that they have written and saved. All right, number 5. I'll keep going down the wall here. What about that? Gauge. Gauge. Tricky spelling in this word, just because of the U is silent. 2 vowels go walking, first one does the talking, so that's an example here. Gauge is both a noun and a verb, all right? In this case, we're going to be considering it as a verb, and then I will tell you as a noun. So, A, do you think gauge is to speak with others? Or B, to determine? What do you think? Gauge is B, to determine. Now, where does that come from? There is an item called a gauge, or items called gauges, okay? They are on machinery primarily, and they determine temperature. They tell us various bits of information about how that machine is operating. Or you might have something like a temperature gauge, a thermometer, okay? Certainly meteorologists, our weather people use a lot of different gauges to determine weather. So, as a verb, to gauge something is to determine information or understandings about something. As humans, we gauge things that are going on around us. We gauge whether we like them or don't like things that are happening, whether we have a strong feeling or not about something, whether it's right or wrong, that kind of thing. We gauge situations. Is this situation safe? Is this situation an emergency? is this situation necessary? Whatever. We might engage something, we might gauge something as to whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, enjoyable or not. So we are constantly gauging things. Now, not to be confused with engage, and that's what I almost slipped up and did a minute ago because my brain was jumping ahead. Engage, E-N-G-A-G-E, E-N-G-A-G-E, as in to engage with another person means to talk with them, okay? To get to know them, to have conversation. To become engaged means to get the ring on the finger, which I haven't been wearing my rings as much because I'm washing my hands so much. So I don't have my ring. So different spelling, different meaning, and when we say, I'm going to gauge something and then make a decision, it means I'm going to determine. I might get up and say, this would be a great day to go to the park. But I need to gauge the temperature and the weather, and it means I'm going to figure it out. All right, number 6 down here. Vulnerable, an adjective. Can we describe one who is vulnerable as being without blame? Would that be what vulnerable means? Or would a vulnerable person be capable of being harmed? All right, vulnerable is B, capable of being harmed, and not necessarily as in a criminal way, and physical bodily harm, not necessarily that at all, but to be somewhat harmed emotionally, or easily damaged. Examples. A vulnerable person could be an elderly person in this coronavirus, very capable of being harmed by the virus because of age and physical ability or so forth. A vulnerable population could be a population where the group of people in that population are not well nourished, do not have the natural good health opportunities that many others of us are fortunate to have. A person can be vulnerable if maybe they have gone through a difficult period, they are sad, something has maybe happened, they've lost someone special, and then other sadnesses or disappointments come along, and that person takes each of those things very seriously and has a very difficult time because they are already very vulnerable. Okay? It's a really good word. Kind of a interesting concept. And I think that probably all of us have been vulnerable at one time in our lives, or more times in our lives, for different reasons. Think about a time that maybe you could have been vulnerable. All right, we have 2 more. The next one, I have all these different ways of getting all my words in on boards, right? This is a noun, Epiphany. Has that PHF sound right in the middle, Epiphany. I love this word. Is an epiphany an instrument in an orchestra? Or is it a sudden insight or understanding? What do you think? It is B. which is why I love this word. Epiphany is a word that's rooted more in religion and in not so much magic, but mystical kinds of things, such as appearances of gods, or in Christianity, the appearance of Christ when it was unexpected, okay? When we use the word epiphany to talk about ourselves or events or whatever, it would be as if suddenly something makes sense. Or suddenly we see something with new eyes in a way we've never seen it before, and we understand it in a much deeper way. So I don't think we have a lot of epiphanies as human beings, but when we have them, they can really be amazing. Okay, we really are able sometimes to move forward because we have a new understanding of something, almost like a vision that has come to us that's very meaningful. The last one is philanthropic. Philanthropic, another one was PHF sounds, and I can't hold this and see myself at the same time. Philanthropic. Is it, by the way, it's an adjective. Would a philanthropic person be a person with visionary ability? Or would a philanthropic person be someone with charitable desire? Charitable means loving, giving, desire. If you chose B, you are correct. A philanthropist is a person who gives generously. You can be a philanthropist even if you don't think that the amount that you give or what you give is that great. It could be great to you based on your ability. A philanthropic person is one who gives financially, materially, primarily, but you can also be philanthropic with your time and other ways, okay? So philanthropy is a much admired trait or characteristic in other people, isn't it? Those people who have given greatly, especially if they have been fortunate to have received much through their their work, what they inherited, whatever, but they don't keep it all for themselves. They share it. Philanthropic. All right, we've gone over time. We'll be back for 3 in just a second.